Hello, everyone. Hello, world. Welcome. I am back today with the part two of how to build a cash rich business. If you haven't watched the first part that I did earlier in this series, then you might want to watch it, but you don't, they aren't designed to be sequential. They're designed to be um, cohesive together. So you can watch this one and then you can go back and watch the part one as well. But I'm glad to have you here today. And I had some technical difficulties starting this live today. So um, you are waiting, if you're joining live today, and if you're waiting, I appreciate your patience. So, with that, I have a story to share. This is a personal, rather intimate, to my personal spiritual experience that I haven't shared with um, anyone, actually, many people. Um, that I'd like to share today because it does um, it does help you understand the angle that I'm looking at this topic through. And so, a few years ago, I went to this meditation retreat. And you might be thinking, what does building a cash rich business have to do with the story about my meditation retreat experience? Well, just hang around until the end of this story because you'll see. And as a spiritual business coach, what I love to do is combine the spiritual insights, truths, and my experiences and apply them to creating the business of your dreams. And so we'll start with this story. And so a few years ago, I went to this meditation retreat with my parents. They actually wanted to go to this 10-day meditation retreat for a long time. It was one of their bucket list items. And they were going at a time where I had time off from my um, high school anyway. So they asked me if I wanted to come along, and I just thought, sure, I'll tag along. I didn't know much about what this was going to be about. I've been familiar with meditation since my childhood. I've grown up seeing my parents meditate every day in my home ever since I was a little child. And when I was a younger baby, even just 1 year old, my parents did take me to nature walks and advanced meditation retreats and things like that um, back in India, where they had a live guru that they were learning from and practicing spiritual practices with. So I've been familiar with meditation as a practice since my childhood, so that was not anything new to me, I thought. Um, but I didn't know what this particular 10-day meditation retreat would really entail. So I was just going with my parents. They said that this particular one it was 10 days. It's called Vipassana, by the way. So if any of you have heard of Vipassana, you may be aware of what I'm talking about. But even if you haven't, Vipassana meditation is a type of meditation that was originated by the Buddha, um, who most people have heard of. The religion Buddhism today um, comes from the Buddha. So, um, As I went to the retreat, it was a retreat center away from the city. We were asked to leave our phones and computers and everything outside of the retreat center. So there was no phone or internet or computers or any electronics really that were allowed in the retreat. And basically, we got fed there. They had food available for us. We would meditate, and there were lectures explaining the concept of meditation, how they were teaching it, and um, explaining how to cultivate that practice. And so I enjoyed it. I was there 1 day, 2 days. I loved the food. It was simple and yet yummy. And we had a bed and a vat. Like, it was a place where we stayed overnight. And most of the day, we were just meditating. We were walking in nature. We were in a retreat. So on until the fifth or sixth day, I was like, oh, this is great. I love it. I was definitely going deeper into myself within as I was meditating more and more, and I was away from the distractions of the phone and email and all of that. I hadn't checked emails or messages or anything on my phone for 5 or 6 days. On the seventh day, I started to feel like something deeper was moving within me. And I was curious. Nothing major happened. On the eighth day, I felt like something major really like got released from my energetic system. And on the ninth day, I was sitting with my eyes closed comfortably and meditating. And I literally felt that every cell in my body in that moment turned into pure vibration, pure energy. Like, it was like I was aware that I'm physically sitting here in this particular room and I'm meditating. At the same time, I knew that I couldn't feel my body, any cells in my body, as a solid thing. I experienced that all the cells in my body, and there's probably like 50 trillion cells in a human body, were pure energy, just vibrating at certain frequencies. And literally, there was no solidity to this very physical, solid body that I know to be true, which is matter. And in that moment, in that instant, I had the experience of being pure energy. My body, the matter, being pure energy at the same time. It was matter and energy at the same time. It was a particle and a wave at the same time. And one time and it was fascinating to me what I experienced in that moment. And once I had experienced that once, then I felt like my consciousness came back to the awareness of how I feel my body as a solid, physical body where I could touch and feel it. And after that point, to this day, I can, on demand, when I want to, just go into that feeling again, that sensation where I could just say, okay, I want to tune into my body, not as a physical matter, physical body and the matter, cells being matter, but I want to feel it and sense it as pure energy. And I can, I can feel that and sense it like that on demand because I've had that profound experience that first time and I have the memory of it. And it's not like I am going back and connecting to that memory of that experience, but because I have the memory of that experience, that I have experienced this for myself as the ultimate truth that is in my own life in that instant. If it could happen in that instant, I can experience and re experience that reality and that truth anytime that I want, just with my pure intention, the power of my intention. So many times in my meditations now, I will call that experience back and say, I would like to experience that again. And I share this story with you, as intimate as it is to me and my spiritual experiences. I share that with you just to state that if I could experience it once, and then if I can call back on it, experience it anytime, multiple times during my lifetime, the same truth is true for you and anyone else. And you can, if you wanted to, experience the truth of the ultimate truth, the universal truth within your body and within your surroundings at any time. It's just easier to feel it and sense it in your body because your body, you're very closely um, attached to and like able to sense everything in your body as it's so closely connected to your consciousness. So, all that to say that the Einstein's for equation that Einstein is famous for, E is equal to mc squared, which in which E stands for energy, is equal to M stands for matter, and c stands for the speed of light squared. So energy is equal to matter multiplied by the speed of light squared. That is the equation that Einstein, the genius that he was, came up with, and he proved it. And that is the foundation for quantum physics today. Where before Einstein came up with this equation, it was believed widely in the world and in science that energy is energy and matter is matter, and energy cannot be converted into matter. Like energy can convert its form from one form of energy to another, like light can be converted into sound, or sound can be converted into mechanical energy, and so on, or heat. But energy cannot be converted into matter, and matter cannot be converted into energy. And that entire premise was blown apart by Einstein's equation E is equal to mc squared, which literally states that energy and matter are one and the same. Matter can be converted into energy. In fact, matter, when it's traveling at the speed of light squared, it automatically has to turn into energy. And when energy slows down its speed and its vibration to a certain level, what happens is it converts itself into matter. Matter is physical, body, physical things we can see and hear and taste and touch and taste and smell and feel, sense. So all that to say is that the Einstein's equation E is equal to mc squared explains and proves that all matter is ultimately energy, and energy can be converted into matter, matter can be converted into energy, and therefore the physical body is matter as we see it. But I actually sensed through my experience that it is also at the same time pure energy as well. And you can have your experience for yourself and test it out for yourself and experience the ultimate truth. But I wanted to share my experience with you so you know that this is, if I could experience it, and if Einstein could experience it and prove it through his equation, then it's at least worth exploring and looking into experiencing for yourself. And then looking at life differently than you may have been looking at it before. And so, how this connects to how to build a cash rich business is that if all matter is ultimately energy, if everything is ultimately energy, and energy speaks in terms of vibration, as I always say, then if you want to influence matter in terms of money and your business, need to understand the energetics behind the cash rich business that you want to manifest and create and build. And so the energetics require, in order to understand the energetics, the first thing that you need to become aware of is what kind of vibration are you currently in when you're operating in your business and making business decisions. If you are operating from, let me just pause here. Kelly, just joining on here. Great to see you, Avadhi. Lovely to see you again. Lovely to have you. I hope my audio and video is clear. There were some technical difficulties starting the live today, but here we are. So, yes, so once you are aware of the fact that everything's energy and it's important to understand the energetic truth behind your business and the current state of your business, what you need to understand is the vibration that you're coming from when you're making business decisions and taking actions in your business. If you are operating fundamentally out of fear and scarcity and lack and limitation, you are operating from what I call the survival mode. Now, the survival mode is great if you have a tiger lurking around about to eat you and you need to run from it or hide. That would serve you well. However, in order to build a cash rich business, for the most part, we're going to assume that there's no tiger lurking around trying to eat you right now. And therefore, it does not serve you to operate from fear and scarcity and operating from that survival mode. So first step is to recognize that you're operating from fear and you're in the survival mode, if that's where you are operating from. And if you are and you recognize that, recognizing it is the first step. After the first step, once you recognize this, instead of pushing it away or trying to change it immediately somehow, I want to encourage you to first notice it and ask yourself these questions. If there's something you're afraid of, what is it that you're really afraid of? Let's actually get very clear on it. Let's dive into it deeper together. And so dig deeper and ask yourself, what is the worst case scenario? What's the absolute worst that could happen in this situation, whatever the situation may be? And get clear on the outcome of what is the worst case scenario. What is the worst that could happen? I do this exercise with my clients all the time. My client the other day was in fear and scarcity and operating out of that survival mode. And let me know if you've been there. Let me know in the chat if you've been there, you've felt fearful, and you've realized that you're operating in survival mode. Um, just type in yes, and let me know. Yeah. My client was feeling the same way, and so I asked him, well, so he's like, well, this particular customer who buys a lot of product from me every year has stopped ordering, and I've been trying to reach him and he's not answering, and like, what am I going to do? And I'm really worried. And so I asked him, okay, well, you've tried to reach him and he's not available right now. Okay, well, what is the worst? What would happen? And then we kept digging deeper until we got to the worst case scenario. He said, well, if he doesn't order from my company, then our revenue will go down. Like, okay, we'll lose. Okay, revenue goes down. What happens then? And it's like, well, we will have cash flow issues. Like, okay, we'll have cash flow issues. What else? And so we kept digging deeper. And believe it or not, this particular client basically said the worst case scenario is that I will lose everything. I'll have to like sell my house and sell everything because I won't be able to pay for anything. And I will be on the streets. Now, that was the worst case scenario. Now, is that really likely? How likely is it that that would happen? I mean, so many things would have to happen before that could happen. But that was his worst case scenario. And so then we we got very clear on that. And then I asked him, okay, so let's just say you lost everything, you had to sell your house, and you're on the streets. Now what? And he had to really face it in that moment. He was trying to avoid facing that very clearly head on up until that point. Until he had to face it. And he said, well, I would basically bill. I mean, the chances of me being on the street are pretty slim because, I mean, my family, my friends, like I have so many relationships who could help. But let's just say I was on the street. Well, I would just rebuild from there. I would start again, start over from scratch. And said, okay, yeah. And then it's like, I have this person that could help me. I have my spouse, I have my children, my other family members who could help me. And so once he faced that worst case scenario for himself, and he saw how likelihood of that even happening was so slim, but even if it did happen, as he saw it, he got to a place of full and complete acceptance of the worst case scenario. Like, okay, even if that happened, let's just say that happened. Let's just accept it. Now what? And the moment he accepted it, his mind started to show him all these different ways that even after that worst case scenario happening, he could still get out of it. He could still start over. He still could rebuild, and he still had support he could lean on, and he still would be okay. He would be okay. And so when you do this exercise for yourself and ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? What else would happen? What else? And get to the worst case scenario and face it head on and get to a complete acceptance of it. The fear, worry, anxiety that was all there, it just like calms down. It just like goes away. Because you're okay with the worst case. Like you've accepted that that could happen. And now new space is created where you can have new ideas come up. And here's what I could do. Here's something else I could do. Here's someone else that could support me. Here's another resource I have that I haven't used yet that I could utilize more of now. And all these new doors and new ideas and new people and resources start flooding in to your mind that now you could use to take some actions and do something about whatever the situation is. And when you do something about the situation from this new space that's opened up, that's what I call being in the creative mode, the creative zone. So there was the survival mode, and then this is the creation mode. And now you're creating from scratch. You're literally rebuilding from scratch in your mind, just thinking about the worst case scenario. Your brain already thought that that's what happened and it's done. Like now there's nothing to be afraid of. It is what it is. And now it can open up to new possibilities and new ideas. And now you can be in the creation mode and create new things. Now you're receptive to new ideas that maybe you weren't able to see or think about or be receptive to in the survival while you were operating from fear and were in the survival mode. And once your new space opens up and that you're in that creation mode, now we can actually do something real as far as taking actions to build a cash rich business. So before I go to the next piece of this process, I want to recap real quick on what we've covered so far. First, I told you the story of my own experience of Einstein's equation, which proves that all matter is ultimately energy and all energy can turn into matter. And everything in essence is ultimately just energy. And energy speaks in terms of vibrations. And knowing that truth you gives you the awareness that when you want to shift something in terms of matter in your business, and money ultimately is a form of energy as well. So cash is matter, but it's also energy at the same time. So knowing that and having that and awareness about the true nature of reality, now you need to start by becoming aware of what is the vibration that you're coming from and operating from within your business, while you're taking actions and making decisions in your business. And if that vibration is one of fear, scarcity, lack, if you're operating from the survival mode, then you need to first get clear on what is the worst case scenario that could happen and accept it fully. So then you can open up new space for being in the creation mode and taking actions and making decisions from being in the creative zone. Kelly says, what a powerful exercise to release that fear around the worst case scenario to move forward. I love it. Yes, it is a powerful exercise that I've used with myself, and I use it till this day, and I will probably use it for the rest of my life. And I've used the same exercise with my clients who have phenomenal results in their business and have gone from being in debt and scarcity and lack and on the verge of bankruptcy in their business to building a truly fulfilling, loving, heart-centered, and cash rich, revenue growing, cash rich business. So I love that comment. And so with that, now that you are aware of how to become aware of survival mode and switch over to creation mode, now the next level, I'm just looking at my notes here. So let's see. Yeah, so having the level of acceptance gives you enormous power over your emotional state and helps you make very important decisions with firm power and self control in your business. This is key to helping you move forward and step into your creative zone in your business that leads to growth. So now that you know the importance of operating from the creative mode, the next level in terms of creating a cash rich business is about increasing your financial net worth. So, one of the key practices that is required for you to increase the net worth of the business and in your life, personal life as well, is to focus on what I called your savings rate. So, a lot of times, what happens is the business has some income and then it goes right out into expenses, and it's just like constant money flowing in and out right away. And the problem is that none of the money, which is a form of energy, is able to stay in the business for longer than a day or two. Like it comes in, goes out, comes in, goes out. It isn't able to come in and stay for a little while. A cash rich business basically means that money coming in is able to stay for a while. And also that the money that's staying is then able to be used to reinvest in the growth of the business for further expansion and for the personal growth of the business owner and the family as well. So the metric to track for this is called the savings rate. It's the rate or percentage of all the money that comes in that actually gets to stay in the business. So if $100 came into the business, how much percentage of that $100 is able to stay in the business instead of just going right out into expenses? If the percentage is zero, then that means you have zero savings rate. If the percentage is 10% out of $100 coming in, $10 staying in the business, and $90 are going out in expenses, then that's a 10% savings rate. So you get the idea. If out of $100, $50 is able to stay in the business and other $50 is going out in terms of expenses, then that's a 50% savings rate. Now, I personally go for 50% or higher savings rate as the goal, the ideal. Now, when you're in the survival mode and when the business is struggling, I can understand that even starting with 1% savings rate or 5% savings rate can feel like almost impossible and can feel really difficult to achieve. But it is critical if you want to build a cash rich business. It is critical to know what your current savings rate is. And if it is zero, you could set a goal to bring it to 1%. If it's 1, you could set a goal to bring it to 5%. Just take baby steps. If it is 5 or 10% right now, you could set a goal to increase it to 15%, 15 to 20, 20 to 25. If you are at 25% savings rate right now, you may challenge yourself to bring it up to 40 or even 50% in some amount of time in the next few months. And then if you are already at 50% savings rate, that's great. And then you can always bump it up from there. However, no matter where you start from, it's important to know that there's no right or wrong. It's just based on where you're starting from. You want to set a goal to bump it up just a little bit, and then bump it once you're there, then bump it up just a little more. It's important to take baby steps. If you are at zero savings rate and you set a goal for 50% right away, that'll be too much of a stretch, usually, for the most part. So, with one of my clients, the savings rate was probably negative 20% when we started. Basically, if they were getting $100 in income, their expenses were $120. So they had not only the $100 was going out, they had to borrow another $20. This is just an example, but like the numbers are just for example, but you get the idea that they were having to borrow. So and now imagine that situation, and it is really stressful to be in that kind of a situation. But in that case, we didn't even set a goal for 0% savings rate. We set a goal for negative 20% to negative 10%. And then once we achieved that, then we went to negative 5%, and then 0%, and then 1% positive, 2% positive, 5% positive, and so on. So no matter where you are, I know I have clients who've been there, and I have also been there personally. So I understand, and I just want to acknowledge you for being willing to become aware of your current savings rate, and then being willing to set a goal that is a baby step in the right direction, and then work on coming up with actions that you can take and decisions you can make to increase your savings rate a little bit every single month. So let me know in the chat what you're hearing from this. What's your takeaway from this last piece about the savings rate? Because this is very, very important to understand and start to become aware of and implement in your business so that you can build a cash rich business. And with that, the one way that you can actually go about increasing your savings rate is by setting up a money management system, a very conscious process that money goes through every time money comes into your business. Kelly says, I need to increase my savings rate and work towards 50%. Absolutely. This applies in your personal life as well, in your personal finance, just as much as it does in a business. The same principles apply everywhere. So, creating a money management system is a very conscious way that you receive money and then you channel money into different categories that gives the money as the energy a specified purpose to serve. So out of $100 that comes into your business, let's just say that your savings rate is 15%. The $15 goes straight into your account that is your savings account. Or you can call it your reserve account. That's what I call it. So that goes into the savings account. The remaining amount, out of that, you have a certain amount that goes into reinvestment account that that money has the purpose of reinvestment into the business so that the business could grow. This could be marketing activities, sales activities, any mentors or coaches you hire who are helping you for growth. any other growth activities that make sense for your business. Um, so a certain percentage would go into the reinvestment account, and then a certain percentage would go into another account for taxes. If you need to pay taxes every year, you need to be saving and setting aside a certain amount for taxes. Now, when your business is operating at a loss, net loss, you wouldn't owe any taxes, so that's not a problem you would have. But if you want to create a profitable business, the moment you have profit in your business, the first thing you're going to owe on that profit is taxes. And so being aware of that and preparing for it, setting aside some amount every month towards taxes is extremely important. Um, because if you want to build a cash rich business, that goes hand in hand with creating a profitable business. And when you have profit in your business, you're going to need to pay tax. So that's really important. And then you have the rest of the money pay all the regular expenses for the business, the bills. So having a money management system, and I go way in depth with all of this with my clients and my programs and courses. So if you feel like you need more hand holding and one-on-one help, or even private guidance on any of this, on how to implement this in your life, in your business, and actually create a profitable, thriving, successful, cash rich business, email my team@avadhi.guru, or look at the link in the description for the bootcamp for business turnaround. As my bootcamp, that is where I help you with all of this, specifically about how to apply it in your business. And so go to that link and sign up for the bootcamp, or email my team privately for a private one-on-one session with me where we can talk more about your business and how it can help. And with that, the last piece of this whole part 2 of how to build a cash rich business today is, well, first, the money management system that I mentioned. It's important that you just designate a percentage of all the money coming in towards different purposes and different accounts each month, and automate your savings and your reinvestments each month and each year. Once you automate it, it kind of takes care of itself without you having to think about it every month. And this is crucial to your long-term success. Now, with that, the last piece of this process that I'm talking about today is about your inherent worthiness. So I'm going to read this out to you. Worthiness comes from hanging out with other worthy, high value, conscious people. There is a high level realm. Yeah. The link to the bootcamp is just my website, www.avadhi.guru/bootcamp. And so you can go there and sign up for that. Worthiness comes from hanging out with people who are inherently aware of their worth. Worthy people. The worthy people live in this high value realm, which is not the same realm where the low value people and low value consciousness hangs out. So worthiness is just as contagious as unworthiness is. And so imagine if you hang around people who have high quality choices that they make for their health, and they have healthy lifestyles, and they have a strong immune system and immunity. Well, if you hang out with those people, they call it herd immunity. you'll become more healthy, you'll become more vibrant, and you'll have better health and even stronger immunity just by being in this level of consciousness amongst these people. If you hang out with people who have low immunity, they're catching all kinds of viruses and diseases all the time, and they're just sick a lot. If you hang around with a sick person, guess what? You're gonna probably, before you know it, at some point, you're gonna catch a lot of sickness, a lot of disease, and you're gonna also catch that unhealthy habits that they have. And so the company that you keep is extremely important when it comes to having a high value, worthy result outcome in your business, which is a cash rich business, versus being in the low value, low vibration, lower, like unworthiness company and consciousness, because this is going to impact your ability to build a cash rich business. In fact, the unworthiness is so contagious that no matter how much you try to build a cash rich business, this energy and this vibe will like kind of try to pull you down and weigh on you. And it'll just make it harder for you to build a cash rich business. Or if you have already built it, it can totally bring you down into being cash poor and having cash poor business, which is not what I believe that you want. So be aware of who you hang out with, what company you keep, what kind of people you are associating with, and what you give your energy and your time and your presence to. There's nothing wrong with these people or these people. Everyone's just at their own level of consciousness in whatever stage of life experience that they're in. And so it's not about making anybody right or wrong about or blaming anybody. It's just about becoming aware of your choices and choose wisely and choose to associate with high worthiness people and keep the company of worthiness so that worthiness can be contagious and help you rise in your worthiness as well, versus you catching the disease of unworthiness, as I call it. And so, with that awareness, that concludes the topic for today. I do have a lot to share with you. If you are in debt, which we call bad debt, so there's good debt and bad debt, if you've heard of this concept. Well, if you find yourself trapped in bad debt, and if you're struggling with that, next week I'm going to be talking about how to build a cash rich business in spite of you being in bad debt. And if you are in bad debt or debt in general and you want to get out of it, how you can do that from a spiritual, energetic perspective, as well as the technical, systematic, process oriented, realistic application and action oriented perspective. So you can have real life results in your business. So stay tuned next week for the next topic on how to deal with bad debt in your business if you want to build a cash rich business. And I'll see you then. And for now, I hope you have a great rest of your day, wherever you are in the world, in whatever time zone you are watching from. I wish you lots of love and lots of success and many blessings. Thank you for joining me today. I'll see you next time. Thank you.